Most blogs are ugly, boring, and nobody reads them. Can this be made better? Blogs have been around since 1997, but they remained practically unchanged since then. Coincidentally, 1997 was also the year when I was making my very first website. It's still an image at the top, then some text towards the bottom. I think it's finally time to push blogs into the new era. Let's create a blog 2.0 together. And for this video, I partner with Framer. I've been writing a lot, over 200 articles on Medium and on our own platform. And I noticed a couple things. What most people do is pick an unsplash image for the top header and then just write a big wall of text. And this is extremely boring, really not engaging. So back when I started writing in 2019, my approach was different from the start. I realized that the modern human with the lower attention span needs a little bit more visual stimuli to keep reading. That's why every 2 or 3 paragraphs I make a dedicated illustration that matches what the text is about. It's not some random photo from a stock photo site. In some cases, I do some simple graphs just to illustrate a trend. It doesn't need to be scientific in any way. Or I custom make raster illustrations from a handful of raster layers and arrange them together. Some are AI generated, some are from my own photos, but everything is combined into a Pixelmator file and then edited like that. But I kept thinking, we are still confined to either static images or GIFs. So I started thinking, how would a 2.0 blog post look like? Of course, it has to be multi-layer, it has to be more visual, it has to be more engaging, but it can't be overwhelming because cognitive overload is a real thing, and if we want to read something, we can't have animations everywhere and everything sliding into place. That would be too much. I took a pen, some paper, and my colorful highlighters and started creating a mind map. The goal of the mind map was to find out what would be the defining factor of a blog post 2.0. Every good movie, good book, and good play has 3 main acts. And obviously it isn't always as relevant for articles, but I thought that this idea is actually worth pursuing anyway. So what we want is a 3-act sandwich, starting with something impressive visually and interactive at the very top, finishing at the very bottom, but it's a double-decker, so we also have 1 layer in the very middle. So once you got to the middle of the article, we break up the reading for just a little bit to show you something impressive that illustrates the points that you've already read just now. And then the final one at the bottom of the sandwich is there to sum it up for you. But we are in the 21st century, right? We can use rich media now, we can use sound bites, we can use videos. And even graphs and charts can be made interactive. They can draw themselves, but they can have another interactive video component of, for example, me looking at the chart as it's being drawn and pointing my finger at it. The idea for those richer, more expensive blog posts came from a children's book. My sister has 2 little girls that love reading, and I noticed that many of the books that they have some pop-up and pop-over elements as you open each page. So you open the page, there is a little bit of reading, but there is a 3D structure forming from the different folds of paper exactly in the middle. And I was thinking that people don't read enough right now anyway, so we can capture that remaining attention and keep them scrolling, even for the sake of finding the animations at the bottom of the blog post. Okay, inspiration part done. I know what I want to build, so now we need to plan it a little bit. And I would normally go with like a low fidelity wireframe, but for this one I decided to have fun. Because I am a professional and an adult, I took out my crayons and my highlighters and some pieces of paper and just started playing with them on the carpet. I quickly realized that layers and a little bit of parallax is a great way to convey some messages, because some elements can cover other elements and show the hierarchy of the messaging of the whole thing. Once I got this done, I realized that I could try mocking up my very first header for an article that I wrote a while back that got pretty popular. The article's title is The End of Influencers, and it talks about how everyone wants to be an influencer right now. So we have big influencers and middle-level influencers and small influencers, and everybody's just trying to kind of get to the top, but there's not many people left to influence because everyone's an influencer now. I started with Midjourney, generating a couple of the influencer people using a simple prompt, and then cut them out from the backgrounds in Pixelmator. Normally, I would just drag and drop all those images into Sketch and start arranging it on layers there, but I realized it's actually gonna be much faster to do it directly in Framer. So what I did is I created a frame for the background element that is semi-static, it's not gonna move too much. Then I pasted in the people, but I wanted to paste them in individually because I want the middle person to move a little bit faster than the rest, so it creates an even more depth in the parallax effect. Then I covered them all with the clouds that I also generated in Midjourney, but I realized that those clouds don't really blend well with the background. Went back to Pixelmator and used a big blurry brush to brush over it with a white paint. Now the clouds were ready, I added the typography, and making this a parallax was basically just a handful of clicks. That was so simple that this whole process of creating an impressive header like that took me maybe 20 minutes, including editing all the raster images. This looked nice, but I felt like it was missing something. Like before you start scrolling, there is not much really happening. So I wanted to add a little bit of like a snowy, glowy particle star effect in the background. And I quickly found a component on the web, and I had no idea it works like this, but this is pretty mind-blowing. You just copy it right from the web, paste it into Framer, and then it appears on the canvas. You can stretch it to fill the entire background under your characters, and then modify some properties. This approach to plugins or plugin components is pretty magical because it doesn't require you to understand how they even work. Just copy and paste, modify some sliders, and you're good to go. The next step was outlining the text, how wide it should be, and I'm gonna give you a hint. It's best if the reading text is not wider than 12 words in one line. So you need to figure out both the width of the entire text block and how big the words can be. Because this is a blog post 2.0 and it's supposed to be more visual and engaging, we can go with a larger font for the majority of the copy and even larger for the quotes. What's important to note is that you have to avoid walls of text. This is something that scares people. If somebody scrolls into a wall of text that's longer than just one page, or longer than 2 paragraphs really, they don't want to read it. That's why it's best to split everything into simple paragraphs that convey a simple idea in each one. That way the brain can focus on a smaller chunk first, then jump to the next one, and then to the next one. I recorded myself doing some gestures and pointing and thinking or pretending to think, and then cut it out from the background using a green screen. Some light editing in Final Cut Pro gave me the results that I wanted, and I was able to then integrate those videos into the article as well. For the graphs and charts, I animated the way they appear so they're more engaging. Of course, you can find the link to the finished articles in the description of this video. Once I did the one on influencers, I wanted to do something different. Because blogs aren't always about just a thought process. Sometimes they are about an adventure. My recent adventure was cycling over 400 kilometers in 2.5 days, with the longest streak being 200 in one go, and documenting the journey. So how would we do it as a blog post? Obviously, we can make some animated mixed media visuals, we can add some extra parallax, we can add a map that is drawing the current status of the trip based on where you are in the article, and more. Once you get a hold on how Framer works, with the copying and pasting things in and then aligning it using simple auto layout rules, It's really easy and fast to do these posts. Because obviously, yeah, I understand that it's super easy to use a CMS to just generate a boring 1.0 blog post. But we want to go beyond that, but we don't want to have every post taking 8 or 12 hours to make. And that brings me to the final piece. I want to make my best posts from Medium or from our own platform into those high fidelity blog 2.0 articles, and I needed to put them somewhere. So I decided to also use Framer to completely revamp my personal page at mihalmalevich.com and to include those posts in there. Because I think what the web is lacking right now is a little bit of personality. Because of the CMS approach, everything is starting to look exactly the same, homogenized and very template based. And I believe that some thoughts deserve more, some ideas deserve more to truly shine, to make it more engaging the way that you feel that it deserves, the way that you feel that will truly benefit the reader with extra context and, well, a little bit of extra delight. Because yes, we are craving that delight, we are craving that little quirky detail here and there that will make that experience memorable. The main problem I faced was figuring out how to streamline the process for the future. Because Framer in itself is really easy to learn, but you need to figure out how you can generate those posts fast. So it's not really about making a template, but rather making a process, because I want them all to be obviously different. So I don't want to just drag and drop a bunch of images into a template and have different images but the exact same idea. But once you know how layers work, and once you're pretty fast in switching from generated or your own images into a pixel editor and then, assembling it all together, then you're able to really create delightful, beautiful things very fast. And one last thing for all the designers out there and all the freelancers out there, you can use this exact same approach to create case studies. You can make them more personal, more delightful, and more engaging by using Framer to create rich experiences around the text that you're writing. Just make sure you don't overdo it. I believe that sandwich approach is really great because it kind of pushes you to find out what's next on the journey, but it doesn't overwhelm you with moving visuals, in every little section. So have I succeeded in making a blog post 2.0? Let me know in the comments. Check out Framer in the link in the description, and you can check all my blog posts right there as well. I'm gonna make a couple of my previous successful posts into that new blog 2.0 style soon as well. And with that, I'm gonna wish you a beautiful day and subscribe if you haven't, right? Cheers.